morning. The soda giant is expected to announce earnings today that analysts say should see a 10% increase in profits compared to this time last year. But the battle between Coke and Pepsi has risen to new highs or new lows, depending on your point of view. Last Friday, two delivery men, one from each company, got into a fight at a Walmart in western Pennsylvania. The Coke man suffered a broken nose and black eye. Joining me for more on this story is Pennsylvania State Trooper John Ficinich. John?
Good morning, Alexis.
Good morning. All right, so tell us, what exactly happened here and who started the fight?
Well, obviously, any investigation we have that involves a fight, there's always two sides to a story. However, our belief is that the Coke delivery guy was stocking his shelves in the store, and the Pepsi guy was coming into the store and bumped into him with his pallet of Pepsi. From that point, a verbal argument took place, at which time they decided that they were going to go outside and settle this argument outside.
You know, I mean, I have to ask, do you think that this was a fight over stocking the shelves and who had better placement in Walmart?
I doubt that that was the case. I think it was potentially, you know, just an accident on someone bumping into another person, and, you know, could have been fueled by that, but I'm going to say it was just a verbal argument that took place that somehow escalated a little bit further.
You know, have you ever seen anything like this before? Because I have to admit I was fairly speechless when I read the story.
No, I could say this is the first. I mean, I've seen a lot of fights over a lot of silly things, but you know, if that was the cause behind this, you know, this ranks up there, you know, amongst the most comical.
And do you have any sense as to whether or not the two delivery men actually knew each other?
At this point, we don't believe so. I believe they've, you know, run into each other in the stores and that type of thing, but, you know, they're from different towns and, you know, different counties, actually, so I don't think there was that much of a history between the two.
All right, Trooper, before we let you go, any charges that you plan on filing?
Yeah, they've been filed this week. They've both been charged. However, the Pepsi delivery guy was charged with simple assault, harassment, and a disorderly conduct, and the Coke delivery guy was charged with disorderly conduct and harassment.
Before you go, I have to ask you, any preference? Which one do you like better, Coke or Pepsi?
Well, I do have a preference, but it's probably not in my best interest or our department's to recommend.
All right.
I know, yeah. So.
All right, Trooper John Ficinich, thanks so much for joining us. All right, well, to delve into what may have driven these soda delivery men to blows, we turn to psychologist Carolyn Pepper, which I suppose would make her Dr. Pepper. Good morning.
Good morning.
This is too good to be true. Okay, how could delivery guys like take their job this far? What do you think led to this?
Well, part of it could be just the stress of the physical exercise that they're doing in their delivery job. They're hauling around their soda, and we know that when we have people do physical exercise, their heart rate increases, their blood pressure increases, and this is a lot like what we experience when we're under threat. So those kinds of physiological cues can be misinterpreted as signs that we need to be aggressive.
And Dr. Pepper, admittedly, for delivery men, you're working incredibly stressful hours, very long nights, and probably part of that involves a lack of sleep or working endlessly.
Sure, and fatigue and heat are all going to be things that are increasing the stress and making those physiological cues more noticeable.
You know, do you believe, you look at two companies like Coca-Cola and Pepsi, that, you know, when you're working for major corporations like this, that there's a natural competitive instinct because you are working for such major rivals, and that could precipitate a fight like this?
Absolutely. This is a classic example of what we would call an in-group, out-group dynamic. If you're hired by one of these companies, you become part of their team. You join their in-group. And part of the definition of that in-group is its relationship to the enemy group, the out-group. So if you work for Coke, Pepsi is going to be the out-group, and you're both competing for that same limited group of cola drinkers. So if you run into the other delivery person, they're going to be part of that out-group, and they're going to view you in the same way. So you've set up a situation where you're likely to have increased conflict as you're both viewing each other as the enemy.
All right, Dr. Pepper, what kind of advice would you give You know, people are going to look at this story across the country, and there's going to be a little laugh here or there. But what kind of advice would you give in terms of dealing with anger management in situations like this?
Well, in situations like this, there are a couple of things you can do to calm yourself down. One is to note those physiological cues, take some deep breaths, and step back. And also, you can just think about the situation. Is this really something that's worth getting into a physical fight for? Did I just bump into the other person? Did they just bump into me? Maybe this isn't such a big deal.
All right, well, Dr. Pepper, before you go, I have to ask you too, you have a preference, Coke or Pepsi?
Well, as Dr. Pepper, I think I'm going to have to root with my own in-group and go with Dr. Pepper.
I'm so impressed. You have been so kind to us this morning. Thank you so much for everything.
You're welcome.
All right.